Hey, I'm Kathleen Jasper, and today we're talking about how to study for your exam. I'm going to give you some tips and tricks that I've learned over the last decade of studying the test industry that will help you be successful on your exam. Let's get started. All right, so I have been studying test structure for the last decade. It started when I was a curriculum master teacher in the district that I worked in, and a very large testing company came in and trained us on how to build really good assessments, how to build blueprints and test specifications, how to use test specifications and blueprints to make questions. So I have learned a ton about this industry over the last 10 years, and I'm going to share a few strategies with you today on how to use this information to be successful on your exam. So the first thing I always say to people when we're talking about studying for any exam, specifically the teacher certification exams, but you can use this for any exam, is that you have to think like a test maker, not a test taker. So most people, when they go to study for exams, they grab a study guide, one that has, a few 5-star reviews on Amazon. They order it, it comes to the house, and they start doing the practice tests, and they read a little bit of the information, but they're focused mainly on the practice tests. And they do that over and over and over again. And sometimes you're successful. I mean, if you just have a few skills you have to brush up on, a quick practice test isn't that bad. That could really help you pass the exam. But when you're studying for content-heavy exams like the teacher certification exams, you're going to need to do more than that. So when you rely solely on the study guides and the practice tests at the end of the study guide, you are thinking like a test taker. You're doing the classic thing that test takers do. And I want you to flip it a little bit and start to think like a test maker. So the first thing you want to do before you buy any program, before you buy any study guides, before you do anything, is you are going to identify the blueprint and test specification for your exam. Now, different testing companies call them different things. For example, the Praxis exams call them study companions, but in the study companion document is the blueprint and the test specifications. Pearson calls theirs test prep materials, I believe, on their website, but in those test prep materials is the blueprint and the test specifications. So when we talk about the blueprint, you are going to see a pie chart. You're going to see, the different sections of the exam and at what percentage. And then in the test specifications, the key word here is specifications. You are going to see the specifics that are on the exam. Now, every big testing company, whether it be for the ACT, SAT, GED, Praxis, Pearson, Foundations of Reading, Texas exams, any exam, even for your students who are taking the English language arts exam at the end of the year by whatever test maker is making that exam, they all have a blueprint and spec. Now, I used to show these in my videos. I used to go and pull up the spec and go through it, but that is the information of the test company. We can't really use their copyrighted materials in my videos. But what I can tell you is that they are available and they are free. So what you want to do is go to Google and Google your test name. So for example, Praxis 5354, let's just say the special education exam, and the words test, blueprint, and specification. When you go into Google, you will see that there are lots of different things that are going to pop up. You're going to see study guides, programs, things that cost money and all of that. What you want to do is go to the testing company, ignore all the things that people are selling you, and find that PDF or that document or that web page with the blueprint and the specs on it. The blueprint will show you the larger sections of the exam and at what percentage, and the specifications will give you the skills and the standards that are on the exam. Please review these documents because it helps to understand the structure and the content so you can think like a test maker and be better prepared. If you go into the exam and you have no idea what sections the exam covers, you have no idea the standards it's aligned with, you have no idea, what's going on in that area, you are coming in at a disadvantage. So study those blueprint specifications. You don't have to memorize anything. I just think you should read through them and really look and see how they structure the exam that you are taking. In my study guide, so this is just one study guide, but this is a very common elementary education exam, the 5001. In my study guides, I always use the test blueprint and specification to build my study guides. That is the Bible. I go by those specs in order to make sure that I cover all the information in my study guides. So when you buy a study guide from me, you are getting those specs. However, I still think it's important to download the original document from the test company because it's going to be much more comprehensive. It's going to have all of the information you need from the exact people who make the exam. So that's going to give you an advantage when it comes to taking the test. Now, in the front of each section of my books, like I'll just find one here. Let's just go to the 5002 language arts here. You can see that at the beginning of my books, I've adapted the test specification. So these are in my own words, but these are all the skills assessed on the exam. And most reputable study guide company will do that. They're not just writing a study guide based on what they think is on the exam. They are looking at the specs and the standards that the exam is aligned with, hopefully. You definitely get that in my books, but certainly any reputable test prep company is doing that as well. So hopefully whatever study guide you get is aligned with the test specifications. Look in the description of whatever study guide you are buying and make sure it says aligned with the test blueprint or aligned with the test specifications, because then you know that whoever wrote the study guide actually looked at the test specs in order to make sure you're studying the right information. Now, once you see all of those standards in the test specifications, you can do a lot of different things. First thing I would do is get to know all that information. You might run down those standards and those skills and go, yep, I know how to do that. Totally understand that. I don't know about this one thing. You can grab that information, put it into Google, learn more about it. You know, you can dissect those test specs on your own and really get that information and dig deeper into that information. Of course, you can then buy a study guide or an online course that will go over the information, but having two things, the test specs and whatever study guide you buy, is going to help you because you can cross-reference the information and make sure you're studying everything you need. Now, I always say you want to look for good words in the correct answer choices. So I talk a lot about this when I talk about my work backwards strategy and the good words, bad words strategy. The information in the test specifications is going to be in the correct answer choices on the exam. So for example, if we're talking about the language arts portion of the 5001, so that part of the exam has a lot to do with teaching reading. And the words differentiation, scaffolding, assessment driven, those are good words because they are in the test specifications and they are aligned with teaching reading, which is a huge part of that particular exam. For the special education exam, if you go into the test specs for that test, you're going to see words like least restrictive environment, inclusion, things like that. Those words are good words on the exam. They're in the test specs and they are in the correct answer choices on the test. Now, beyond that, you can use the practice tests in your study guide to help you measure your skills. Now, for example, in my study guides, there's always a bunch of practice test questions after each section, after each content category. And then in the back of the book, there's anywhere from 1 to 3 practice tests. If you have a book with multiple practice tests in the back, full length, you can take the first practice test as a pretest so you can measure your current skills. I recommend not looking at the correct answers. Just do the test and get a score and see what areas you're low in. Don't look at the answer explanations because you can reuse that test later. If you know exactly what the answers are on that practice test, it's not going to do you any good later. What I would do is just get a baseline score, see where you are and say, okay, I'm a little low in this area. I'm doing well in this area. I definitely need to work hard in this area. And then you can focus your studies. Then what I would do is go back into your study guide and work through each section diligently. Read the information in the study guide. Look at this book. It's huge, right? And what do a lot of people do? They just take the practice test at the end of the book. And I've done that too, my whole life, really, when I was preparing for exams. It wasn't until I learned a lot about the testing industry that I realized you have to understand the content and the skills assessed on the exam. The practice tests are a way to measure your skills, But just taking practice tests over and over again is not going to help you, especially if you struggle in any one area on the exam. So really get to know the information in the study guide. So read each section, understand each section, look for those good words. Take the practice tests, measure your understanding, and then go back and fix up wherever you are low. So the first practice test, get a baseline score, then go in, study, look at everything. And then when you're done studying, take that first practice test again. Because you didn't look at your answers and the answer explanations, you could take it again and still get a read on if you know the answers. So see if you went up. If you went up, great. If you went up in areas that you studied, wonderful. I would probably then go back into the study guide and continue to fix up any areas where you are low. Then I would take the next practice test. If you are scoring at a 75% or higher, you are ready to take the exam. Now, you do not need a 75% on most of these exams. Typically, a low C or even high D will get you a passing score on these tests. So it really helps to know, and this will help you a little bit with your test anxiety, you do not need 100 to pass these exams. You need a D, a high D, or a very low C. So you can miss a lot and still pass. So remember that. But I always say a 75% correct on the multiple choice or selected response, they call it, because that's a very safe zone. If you're scoring a 75%, you're ready to take the actual exam. Now, on some of the bigger exams like this is 4 sections. You can take them all at once, and you may pass all or just some sections of the exam. That's okay. If you only pass some sections, have a look at your score report and dig down and see where you are low, and then go back and fix those sections. Lots of people have to take these exams multiple times. When I was prepping students for ACT and SAT, there was a certain score many of my students wanted so they could go to University of Florida or Florida State, very competitive schools. They would take the ACT 9 times, 10 times to get the score they wanted. Many of my students took that exam 5 times, 6 times, some even up to 9 times to get the score they needed in order to go to those schools. So it's very rare that somebody just out of the gate gets a perfect score on their exams and moves on. Sometimes you have to slow down, take it again, take the time to study, and really fix up your skills in order to be successful. You would say that to your students. You would say, it's okay if you're not successful today. We'll continue to work so you can be successful next time. It's not a reflection of who you are. It's just that you need to work a little harder, get to know these skills a little bit more, and then take the test again. Lots of people have to take the test more than once. And finally, I get this question a lot about how much should I study or how many hours should I be studying? Now, this is very difficult for me to answer because I don't know what your skills are. For example, in this particular exam, there's a hefty math section. In the Praxis Core, there's a huge math section and grammar section. On the ACT, the grammar, the reading, the math, it's all very heavy. So without understanding your skills specifically, giving you a certain amount of time is not something that I can do. However, taking the first practice test as a pretest, getting a score will help you understand where you are. If you're really low, you have a lot of work to do. If you're kind of mid-range and it wasn't that difficult for you, you might not need as much time, okay? It just depends on where you are when you take that pretest. Now, I do recommend incremental study over cramming. So some of you are crammers and you can do it. For the exam, you open the study guide and you flip through it, and then you go and you take the test and you're fine. It's rare. I was never that kind of a student. I had to work in order to get the grades I got, but I did go to school with people and still do with people who can just kind of look things over and take the exam. Most people are not like that. So what I recommend is carving out 20 to 30 minutes a day for your test prep. I like to do things early in the morning when my family is asleep, especially for you teachers out there. You might want to carve out just 20 minutes while the rest of the family is asleep, where you can open your study guide, have your coffee, and have a look at some of the information. Maybe take a little practice test or part of a practice test and call it a day. Some of you like to do it at night. I don't like to do it at night. I'm done. By 4 o'clock, I'm toast. My brain is shot. I can't do it. But some people are good at 4 o'clock. It just depends on when you can get the most out of your studies. But Incremental practice over longer periods of time is going to help you understand the material, and it's going to keep your brain in the test. If you're just cramming every weekend for 3 hours and then you go 5 or 6 days and you don't look at the material, that's not as good as if you looked at the material for 20 minutes each and every day. Maybe Monday was a busy day for you and all you had time to do was read like 2 paragraphs in the study guide. That's okay, because you stayed in the study mode, you stayed in the subject area. And then the next day you might pick up an extra 5-10 minutes, but definitely incremental practice over time will help you. And finally, when it comes to reading and writing exams, the only way to get better at your reading exam is to read more. Now, there are lots of strategies, and I have a lot of strategies on my YouTube channel for reading. However, the way you strengthen the reading muscle is to read more. Now, for this exam, for teacher certification exams and the ACT, SAT, you have to read passages and answer questions. So I would mix up my reading a little bit. I would read some informational texts, perhaps the New York Times, The Economist, the Wall Street Journal, things like that that are very informational. And then I might mix in some passages with questions. So maybe one day you read just 2 pages of the Wall Street Journal, just some informational text about Wall Street stocks, things like that, things that are a little dry and harder to get through. And then maybe the next day you do a short passage with 5 or 10 questions. You do that every day, 20 minutes a day for 2 or 3 weeks. You're going to get really good at reading and you're going to be more successful on your reading exam. When it comes to writing, you have to practice your writing. So there are a couple ways you can do that as well. First of all, we have lots of writing prompts in our study guides. So in my Praxis Core study guide, where you have to write an essay, I have 10 argumentative prompts you can use, and I have like 3 or 5 source-based prompts. But you can always go into Google and see if there are any writing prompts on there. You can also use ChatGPT by just going into ChatGPT and saying, please generate me a writing prompt for the Praxis Core argumentative prompt, and it will generate a writing prompt you can use. So there are all kinds of ways you can get extra practice for your writing and then write and score it against the rubric in the test specifications. So in the test specs, there will be a rubric for the writing if you have to take a writing exam. Score your writing against it. If it's disjointed and confusing and too wordy, you're probably not going to score really well. If it's succinct, has specific examples, and concise and organized, you're going to do better on the exam. So get to know the rubrics for the writing, practice your writing, and grade yourself against the rubrics. And that's how you do better at the reading and writing sections on your exams. All right, let me show you where to get more information on our products. So if you are testing for your teacher certification exams, get the best resources out there. All right, so this is my website, KathleenJasper.com. Of course, we have study guides, extra practice tests. I do some extra practice tests for the 5001 because lots of people wanted them. But remember, it doesn't replace the full study guide. So the study guide I was holding up today is the 5001. You can get it as a digital download from our website. You can also get it on Amazon. You can see we have almost 1,000 5-star reviews. Lots of people love our products because we have the best, because I use those test specs and blueprint to build our stuff. We also have online courses for a whole host of things. And I just added some new teacher courses. This one is a survival course for new teachers. This will help you get through your first 1 to 3 years. And then I have 2 interview courses, the teacher interview course and the school leadership course, if you're looking to get jobs in as a teacher or as an assistant principal. And then of course, we have everything from, the teaching reading online course to special education to everything. We also have been adding some audio courses. So if you're someone who likes to put in your headphones and listen to your information on the go, these are great there. And then of course, every Saturday, pretty much every Saturday, I do take one Saturday off a month. I do live webinars, and I really show you how to think like a test maker and pass these exams. So as the recording of this video today, I will be doing the Praxis PLT this weekend and the Praxis Core. But I also have all of the replays in here. So if you're studying for an exam and we've done a webinar for it, I highly recommend clicking these buttons, putting in your email, and you get a mini study guide and the replay. So we have live and we have replays here. All right, that's it for today. Good luck on studying for your exam. Let me know if you have any questions by adding to the comments below. Consider subscribing to this YouTube channel, and I wish you luck on your exams, whatever ones you're taking. Remember, Think like a test maker, not a test taker. Focus on the structure. Try to find the patterns and the good words. Draw out your studying time. Don't cram unless that's your thing. Maybe cramming works for you, but for most people it doesn't. And just be strategic in your approach to the exams, and I guarantee you will be successful. Keep trying, don't give up, and I wish you luck. Have a great day.